Want to decoupage like a boss? Stay tuned, and I'm going to show you how to use Made by Marley decoupage paper to really make your furniture pop. Okay, so this is today's piece. This is an absolute dream of a find. This was going to landfill. Today is a landfill piece. Saved from landfill, and let's see what we can do. Is there anything really? Well, it's got some dubious sort of lino stuck to the top, which we'll get to in a minute. It's a sort of kind of faux marble effect, but I think you're going to probably be able to peel that off.
Yep.
Two decent sized cupboards, clean and tidy inside. Nothing wrong with that. See if I can reach it. 3 drawers all working very nicely, which is a bonus. I wouldn't normally, if I'd paid for this piece, I'd have been absolutely thrilled to see somebody advertise it because it was going in the bin. It's even better. It's got an age to it. It's got a lot of kind of like bits that you would think for its age, because it's not a young thing. It's not like me. It's not really young. So don't laugh, Martin. So yeah, what we're going to do today? Okay,
it's a really well made piece of furniture.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a really nice. I'm not quite sure where I would date it, but it's not young. It's not young. I can tell by the handles, and the square nuts that are holding the handles on as well. They're
handmade nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an old one, and unfortunately, it was going to go to the tip. How sad is that? So let's see if we can give this gorgeous beauty a new set of clothes, some new jewellery, and see how she ends up. What are we going to do today? Today is super duper duper excited. In fact, I can hardly contain my giddiness, my joy. So for those that are just new to Made by Marley, we have a decoupage company. Yes, we do. I design this decoupage paper. This one I'd like to introduce you to is called Butterfly. It comes in, when you order Made by Marley paper, it comes like this. It's got 3 A3 sheets in it, and it comes folded like this in a cardboard box, so there's no fold line like that. It comes to you like this. What are the sheets like? Let's have a quick look. Now, you probably saw all these at the release, but I'm just because I like it, I'm going to show you again. So it comes with one big butterfly. I was channeling a sort of kind of natural, sort of almost patchworky sort of number, but I wanted some flowers. I was thinking spring. This is probably the most overtly spring paper out of our new collection. So one big one. Whoops. 3 in different colours, with the big one staying as the main focus. Same sort of greenery and vines running around, same florals. So because it all really works well as a set, this one. And again, your main big one, which is even bigger now, with 2 slightly offset ones. So each one of these is all a different size, which is good if you're going to cut them out. Today, I'm going to probably focus on a little bit of a beginner's sort of piece. A piece that if you're new to our decoupage paper, we're not having to blend lots of transitions, because I've got these panels already made for the decoupage paper, and I'll apply it to the drawers as well, which means that you know it's going to be one of those pieces that isn't going to be overtly complicated, but it should come out looking really nice. What do you need for today? I mean, I've already laid out everything I need. I'm so organised, man. I'm going to be using some resin. I'm going to be using, I've not used this before. I found it in my stash. It's called Simple Greenery. It's a redesign by Prima Mold. It makes this sort of simple greenery, as it says on the, as it says on the tin. I am going to make these with resin, but don't let them cast up hard, so that I can kind of almost squish them a little bit, because I want to try and put them round here. But we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to be using a white. Yes, I did say white. Don't worry. I'm sure it'll all be okay. White. we can nurse ourselves through this. I think there'll be enough colour on it that I think that white is good, because obviously I looked at the paper and I thought I could have ran with an orange, a dark red, a blue, and I think I might do the top of it blue, like a bousson blue, an Eastlands bousson blue, which is this sort of colour. But the kind of in-betweeny stuff is going to be white with a sagey green, because I'm taking it from these leaves here. So you can see where my inspo's been, you know, these are not quite the same leaves, but I've got leaves and leaves. So I'm going to try and make that work. We're going to try and do like, put the moulds on, paint this white, and then come back over and paint each of our leaves in a sort of sagey green. So these are my colours here that are going to make my sage green. This is the white. You're going to need Mod Podge. If you buy Made by Marley paper, if you open it up on this little Made by Marley card on the back, it'll tell you exactly the best way to apply it. Tried and tested, and I tried and tried and tried and tried and trialed many different things to apply it with, and I stuck with the one that worked best, that stayed on the furniture. So Mod Podge, you're going to need some of that. You're going to need some brushes, water for your brushes. You're going to need a pot to mix up your resin. New resin scales for me because I managed to wreck the old ones. We're not talking about it. I did try to deny it to Martin, but I don't think he was entirely convinced.
I wasn't buying it.
He still blames me anyway, so the other ones no longer work. So new scale. Oh, there's a glass, Martin.
Yeah,
oh,
fancy ones.
Hope I don't drop these. Anyway, right, so scales, jar for your resin.
I also got slightly bigger than the last ones as well, because you tend to run out of space quite quickly.
I got the rundown from Martin about putting something on and like setting it back to nothing so that it didn't dribble into it, because they were either dropped or the resin seeped into the front of where the numbers are, the square with the thing.
Yes. We'll just say they were dropped, shall we?
I think you dropped them, but I'm not having a debate on camera. Anyway, what else are you going to need? I'm going to seal all this at the very end with the French sheet. Now, I can hardly say this. French sheet tough top coat sealer. Yeah, that's going to be my sealer. You're going to need a soft cloth for your decoupage parts. And really, this is to put on top of my scales so I don't make them and it runs into the LED. LED, that's what they're called. So yes, that is all we're going to need. I thought I'd do something new today and show you everything you're going to need to create something beautiful. Although that's a bold claim considering I haven't made it yet. Anyway, what I'm going to do to set up is I am going to get going on the moulds because I'm going to need quite a few to go round. I'll get Martin to... Oh, and I have to whip off this.
I might need to sand the top of that after you pull that off.
Oh, there you go then. See?
So we'll do all of that.
And then I'll be back. You've seen me do moulds countless times. I'm applying the mould with a brush. I have run out of piping bags, which this would have been ideal for. But just make sure, like with all moulds, I would rather it squeezed out and I had to clean it up than it wasn't at the edges and it was not going to glue down appropriately. So something to bear in mind. And you notice I'm putting them onto the bare wood as usual, so I'm not putting them onto a paint surface or my decoupage or anything else. Now let's just try and make sure, because you've got to remember that your cupboard's got to open. This cupboard opens this way, so I know that everything else I've done is fine. Right, let's just squeeze this on for a moment and I'll work on the cleanup once I've got the other piece on. When I cast these moulds, I also use something else with a leaf shape, and in this one here there's like a solitary leaf. You can see on occasions I've put a leaf in. It's just because there was kind of gaps. I don't want this to go too far up because obviously I've sanded here, by the way, to make sure that there's no residue around my paint finish, but I need to make sure that this is on. I'm going to break that leaf off and I'm going to sit this down. I might have to take this one here off as well. My mould's got a wee bit hard. Whoops. Yeah, we'll try this. See, I just don't want anything, because this is a curved surface. I don't want it. It's such an easy process when it's much softer. So you just have to kind of time them, and it's quite time sensitive. So You need to make sure that they're just right. All the rest I managed to get when they were nice and soft so that I could bend them, but hey ho. Okay, so I've got the molds on the 2 side doors. This is my overall positioning on how it's going to look. The drawers we will take out and we'll separate the 3 butterflies onto each one of the drawers. Now I said that this wasn't going to be one where it was going to be incredibly complicated, a sort of kind of almost a beginner's sort of kind of decoupage. So normally you would rip decoupage paper, but I do want to rip the top edge of this. I do want to do this because I am going to blend more of the same paper up into the top. And the easiest way to kind of blend it is if I rip it. My fingers are quite sticky from the glue from the molds. I did wash them. I've washed them about 3 times. So this edge here is going to be this edge here. This bottom edge though is going to sit into this recess here, so we can cut that part. This is what I mean. This is easy decoupaging by my standards. So I wanted something that showed this beautiful paper without putting a whole load of stuff around about it. I was quite mindful of trying to do that, and I'm going to cut these edges because although it's not quite the same width, it is pretty much there and thereabouts, and we might be able to do a clever little plain blend down these edges with some paint. So let's just get rid of this edge here, and the same around this side here. So if you've never used Made by Marley decoupage paper before, you know all the stress and hassle of decoupaging with tissue. The reason I designed my paper thicker was so that it was easier to apply. That's the reason. I could have had tissue paper when we first started designing it. I could have had lots of different paper, but
we tried lots, didn't we?
We tried tons and tons of
hundreds.
paper, but this was the paper that worked best for us.
And we had that specially made for us because of what the characteristics Lil wanted.
This paper has been made. You can still see through the light if you know it's pretty thin, but it's nothing like tissue paper. It's just not. So let's just have a kind of wee looking at how this is going to go into this recess. By putting this at the bottom here, when I go to put the other one on, I'll know that they're straight. So that was one good reason. Now, I am going to be applying it with Mod Podge for those that have never watched any of the videos before. Mod Podge. With a smooth brush. Now, let me just try and explain something to you. If I try and use, let me think. If there's a bump on your piece, this part here, under here, isn't touching, which means this will give you an air bubble. If there is a piece and there is no glue on it, what happens is everything else glues around about it, and the part that hasn't got glue gives you an air bubble. That is the principles of the bubbles. So first of all, I'm just going to check that there's no big rough parts. If you think there are any rough parts, Martin's tiptoeing through the paint as per usual. For those that are in the live videos, I think his socks are safe yet. Haven't got the paint out. So I'm just making sure that there's no lumps or bumps because they can affect and give you wrinkles. So I think that I'm happy with that surface there. Now, the way you apply your paint can also give you wrinkles. So it is best to work with a smooth brush, be methodical, make sure that every part of the surface and past it, because we know it doesn't go quite to this edge, but I'm taking it into this edge. You know, it doesn't go right to this edge, but I'm taking it into this edge. And then what to do is work your glue so that there's not a whole load of ridges. Ridges can give you bubbles. Can you start to understand the principles of sticking anything down? If there's lumps, you're going to get air pockets and bubbles. If there's no glue, you're going to get air pockets and bubbles. It is that simple. Now, I'll smooth all this out in a minute. I just need to make sure that I've got right to the top. Make sure that everywhere is covered. Now, let's smooth it out, making sure we don't have great big deposits of glue because they can give you bubbles. I am 100% showing you the way to go. So, there we go. I'm happy with my surface. I know I can see that there is no areas that don't have any glue on them. There's no lumps. Positioning. Let's just get our positioning right. Making sure I can slide it. Mod Podge is quite forgiving in the beginning, so up it goes. Soft cloth. Now, there are no difficult principles in what I've just shown you. There are no complicated things like brayers or anything else that you think you've seen other people using. There is nothing complicated about this. Now, what I suggest now is, because you've got it on and you know that there is no wrinkles in this, it's just...
You know what's coming.
You know what's coming. Just leave it alone. Do not be tempted to rub it and fiddle around with it. Just leave it alone. There you have it. This is smooth. Now, I can already see like it's bouncing back up because there's water underneath there. There's water and glue, so it is going to do that. But the more you rub and the more you do things, the least likely your surface is going to be smooth. That is it. There isn't anything. There is no mystery. It's not like applying tissue paper. There is no hassle. You're not having to do all these different things. It won't cut in half if it gets wet with your glue. It is that simple. Made by Marley Decoupage paper is that simple. And if I haven't convinced you with this one, I'll convince you with the drawers. So this isn't something you normally would see me do. I normally do it all as one, but I am breaking down and making it easier for you to get the concept of decoupage paper. If you turn our decoupage paper over, there's a line that you can follow when you fold it, which means that you're going to get a nice, well, I'd like to say straight, but it is me cutting it, so. So this one is going to go on this drawer. And I have the middle drawer, which is going to have the big one. Flip it over. Put this little one up there for this last drawer here. Let's just work on this one here because this one's going to be the easiest. Now I am going to build these drawers up. Don't worry if it's too big because we can sand these. I am going to be building the sides up with other sheets. So I don't mind if I just cut it off. Normally I would always rip it. But because I'm going to be fussy cutting and putting things over the top of it, it's good to do this. It's all right. We're fine. Right. What happened to my cloth? Did I bring it at you? So let's just see that principle again. Remember, I sanded down where my handles were going to go.
Excuse me.
making sure that the glue is nice and smooth and it is all covered, because then you're not getting any wrinkles. That's the last time I'm going to mention wrinkles. Down, cloth. See this little part here where I've cut it slightly short? Don't worry about that. When I go to paint around the edges, we'll fix all of these things, because I need to put decoupage paper along this edge as well. Let me just show you this again on the other drawer here. Now, I'm maybe over labouring the point here, but I don't think you can be shown too many times. Now, I've overdone my glue, making sure that there's no too much glue on it. Smooth it out. Centre it up. Soft cloth. And then just leave it alone. Now, the same thing will happen with my third one, which is going to go on here. But how are we going to build this out? Let's work on the one that's going to be quite tricky. Let's work on this one, because there's quite a lot to go round. So taking, what sheet? So taking, not this one, because I want to make sure that you've got, yeah, this one. I'm going to quickly just tweak this off of here. I want to take this border off of here. So let's just put a little bit of border top and bottom of this, first of all, using this part here. Just going to cut this in half the best I can. My sort of half, it means ones they're not halved. Again, let's just re-glue here, and you might need to put let's put this on this edge like that. I find if you kind of almost put a little bit of Mod Podge along the seam, kind of just disappears. Let's take the bottom part and stick it on. Whatever process I do on this will be the same process that I do on filling out the last drawer. Because it works with the overall design and it has got this sort of part on it. If this runs over, that's fine, we can sand that. And what have we got here? Let's just have a wee looky. How do I want this to go? Let's just take cut a bit short. Yeah, I'm going to take this part instead. So let's just kind of get it there and thereabouts. The good thing about Made by Marley decoupage paper is you can add on top of it and it doesn't look like you've added anything on top of it. It just all kind of blends together. That was one of the things that Ginny says when she uses the paper. You can just add a part over the top of it. Right, so again, we're going to put our glue on. Now, I can tell I've put a little bit much. If you think you've put a bit too much glue on, just get rid of some of it before you smooth it out. I've taken it right up to this lip of this paper here. Let's just see what we can do with this for a start off. You can see I'm not using a cloth with this part. It's small enough that I can use my hands. I always get concerned about edges, so let's just make sure that there's plenty down on the edges. Oh, I don't need to touch the edge. And I need one last piece for in here, so let's just see what I can pillage from here. There. And you need one last thing to make sure that it looks normal and it doesn't look like there's a part being cut out of it. Just fussy cut a leaf. And stick it across there. And there, you've kind of made a jigsaw out of your paper. I'll be doing the same on this side. Now this side and this side don't have to match. It goes with a sort of patchwork quilt of what I'm trying to achieve. I'll be doing the same on the other drawer, making that one work just with pieces and parts of the paper. And the bottom one will be the hardest fix because it is the narrowest, because it's the smallest butterfly. So when I go to put that one on, I'm going to use other parts to build this one out as well. But I'm going to get on and do the 3 drawers. Then we'll come back and we'll decoupage in these 2 rungs here. Then we'll put our drawers back in. I'll also off camera put the other butterfly on this side cupboard here, that because you saw me doing it there, you don't need to see me doing it here. Okay? Okay, so I've already sanded one of the edges of the drawers, and I'll get Martin to just give you a nice look at how smooth this is. There's no paper hanging off of it. So this one's done. There's not a lot hanging off anywhere really, but you just need a fine grit sandpaper, and anything like this, just sand it off. It gives you a much cleaner, smoother edge, and literally it just comes off so easy. Now, let's put our drawers to the side right now. So all the drawers have the patchwork quilt look about them, which I showed you yesterday. Now, I had intended to put decoupage paper along here to make it all sort of one design, but I've decided I'd like a breakup in between my drawers. So this is why I put a little bit of tape in here, because I mean, your chances are that your customer's never really going to take the drawers out of the furniture, but just in case they do, if you tape in a little lip just past this edge, that means that if they ever take them out, it's nice and tidy. Sometimes people ask me this simple question of they don't know where to paint because they're just starting out, and I think that's kind of maybe the same for everybody. So with this piece here, obviously this is going to be, round edges are going to be white, along here is going to be white, but if we get down to the bottom here, you can see that this runs all the way down. So I've taped off here as well, because this here will be white, and up this, because this is white.
Let's get a little bit closer to show them what you're talking about.
Yeah, because this is white, this will then be white too, up and around here and along here. And this is the crucial edge. We can make these, I'll show you how to paint these so these are tidy and you're not getting a lot of bleed through into the piece. But these ones here are the crucial ones to tape up. I will be putting a little bit of masking tape because I'm going to do the legs. The sort of, see this sort of burnt orange that's on here? Maybe put a little bit of red in it to darken it up. So the top's going to be the sort of petrol-y bluey colour, this top. And this edge here is going to be the orange. and the feet are going to be orange. Can you see how I'm incorporating the colours from here and moving them up my furniture? So I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on these legs as well. I'm not going to get anywhere near the legs, but it's just so that I don't get white on it. Now, firstly, let's just talk about what I'm going to be doing. This is original white. I have plenty of this because it's not something I normally do. Now, I want to show you this brush. You're going to be horrified, but to be honest with you, it's the best brush for doing moulds in a small area. Can you see it? I have had this brush,
years.
I mean, it's even a little bit melted. I've obviously had a heat tool on it for a long time. But why do I keep using it? It's because it does the job. I want to get in, let's not concentrate, right? So for example, when you're coming along here, you're just painting along here. It's going to take 2 coats, so we're not worried about it, but I would do 2 thin coats as opposed to try and paint your furniture with one heavy, trying to skip out the base coating. So this is just the canvas coat, so it's just one light coat. The moulds, how to do it, practice putting, oh, Martin's saying do this side.
It's easiest for me to get.
So if you hang on, sorry, I'm just going to have to move so I can do over here. Practice putting the majority of your paint in and then bringing it up the sides of the moulds so that you can then smooth this out and you know that your moulds are getting covered. Now it's going to be quite simple with these if any little sort of white bits are missing on this one because the moulds are white, but you want to keep wiping over the top of your moulds because you don't want to lose any of the definition that you've got in your moulds. You would lose all the veins and the leaves if you put on too much thick paint. So I mean, you've seen me paint moulds before, and you know I've said before, you need to look this way, up above, and from below looking up, just in case you miss any parts. So I'm going to go on because you don't need to see me do this. I'm going to give all the parts that I've shown you. So along these rungs, in here, now, in here to avoid paint getting in here, I would go across it like this, like that. And you will see that there's no, I'll show you on this one, sorry, Matty.
I think
Martin's at the other side. He can tell me whether I'm dribbling paint in the inside. It shouldn't be. Am I, Martin?
No, not a speck.
Right, so that's how to do these. Don't worry about this hinge. If it gets a little bit, this lock, we can clean that off. But then that meets up with here. And that's the best way. And this is the right sort of kind of size for brush. It's not the best brush for kind of getting it smooth because it's that kind of the brush I use for the moulds. And then just, wait till I see. Aha, hang on. Something like this.
Hang on, I missed that.
It's just a sort of chip brush, really. If you push in, so you've got your paint on your brush and you push in to the edge up the top, you can then get a nice tidy seam. Push and move. Well, that's the theory anyway. Oops, don't stick your finger in the paint, but that's how you'll get a nice tidy. And then when you look up, you're not going to have a great big white ledge, because especially up in this part here, because you don't want this isn't going to be white, because this lip here is going to be orange, so the orange is going to come around here. So up in and just along like that, so it's nice and tidy. But that's how you paint all of these parts. I'm going to get on and paint all of these parts. I'm going to get on and I'm going to paint all in around the mould. The part in the decoupage paper, this part here, we're going to come back to this part. We'll get that filled in. But I just wanted to get the white on so it was drying. Okay? Okay, so the white part has been painted. Now at this stage, if you were sort of into your farmy housey looky, this might work. And there's a couple of other papers in our collection that if you did something like this with, this would really kind of give a good effect. But before I move on and do all the other things that I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to piece this part up here. Now, because I'm looking for a patchwork quilt, I'm not going to apply it this way. I'm going to just get this section. I'm going to stick it in here so that this looks like there's a border running across it. And then I'm just going to push it into the shape of where it's got to go. Just get my nail right into it, just so I can cut it out. So that leaves me a kind of sort of shape. Now, we'll get these on here, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to just quickly do around the edges. Now, I'm hoping that this is kind of there and thereabouts. I missed out that part there. Right, okay, I can fit that in there in a minute. If you think that things are a little bit, I was looking for some water. If you're trying to get into these sort of parts here, if you use a water spray, that will really help. So I can see it's going in perfectly here. So let's just see if I can try and get rid of this part here. It's this shape here, this one here that's throwing it. So let's just cut that out. Yeah, I think I was a bit too slap happy with my scissors there when I cut this out. Right, okay. So that's going to go across there like this, which is going to leave us this border. And I'm not ripping this because I want it just to fade in. So as I showed you yesterday, let's just get this on. Before I go any further, I'm going to get Martin to try and show you. It's really difficult on camera, but I'm going to rub my hand over this, and you are going to see there is not even a hint, not even a slight part that has a bubble or a wrinkle. It is smooth. I wish my face was as smooth as this. So this is it. This is how smooth it is. Yeah. So we know that we can put it on smooth. So we've got that down. I'm gluing there even though I don't have a part for it yet. And same thing applies. Now I'm taking it over this edge here. If you're doing it all in one day and you're in a bit of a, you're doing it, you might find this edge will lift back up. But the trick is, see, when you apply it, just to run a little bit of glue across there and let it sit. This has been sitting since yesterday, so there's no way that that's going to lift back up. But when you first do it, or maybe when you apply paint to it, you might get a little bit of lift. The trick as well is just to kind of leave it alone and see what happens with it. You can always come back and deal with it. Right, okay, so I'm happy with this, but I always think a little bit of Mod Podge just along the joint kind of I don't know why I think that. I just think it kind of melds them in. So I've got this sort of patchwork effect working that's on here now. That's working across the drawers. So the drawers now match this. I could have just had the florals, put them on upside down and made it look like another band of florals, but I like this look. The reason why I put this band on my decoupage paper was because I enjoyed it so much, especially the blues as well. I like this, so let's make this a feature. Now, this tiny little edge here, you can see I've painted it in, and I haven't exactly been, what would you say, I wasn't being careful because my intention was to put a little bit of white on my palette down here. Now, I don't want lots of this because I don't want to cover up these lovely bands, but just to kind of just make it look like it's been kind of, the edge is a little bit distressed, so not all of it, just some of it. Something like that. Sometimes it can be a little bit not coming onto the paper, and then other times you can have it, and that gives you a chance just to kind of tidy up these little edges again as well. Just gonna go like that in the corners, and that's all I'm doing, just to kind of make this look like that's how it's been applied, like it's almost been ripped on, and you can see the colour of the furniture underneath. That's what I'm trying to say, and you would get there in the end. Okay, I'm gonna put the lid on the Mod Podge because I don't know if you've ever, I have done it multiple times, especially in the stable where I've knocked it over and you can't scoop it off the floor of the shed because it's all gritty, so you're losing about this much, and I'm guaranteed to trip over it. So we'll set that over there just now. In fact, I'm just going to put my brush in water. Now, I have managed to find a paint that, this is the paint I'm going to show you in a minute that I'm putting on the top. I didn't have a huge amount of Bousson Blue. I've only got a little bit. So I decided in my infinite wisdom, I've just got a tiny little bit in here, but I thought I'll make something myself. So what went into this? It's the new Annie Sloan's Frida Blue, which is a really bright blue, some black, a little bit of Oxford Navy, and a little bit of Givany. That is how I mixed that up, just to kind of get a petrol blue. But if you've got a paint that just matches that, then good for you. I wanted to do that. Right, so this is here. I've got this here. The paprika red is going to be the border here. So this is going to be blue. The border is going to be, I'm going to have to sand this bit here. I've been a bit naughty. It's going to be paprika red, and the feet are going to be paprika red. But how are we going to start dealing with these cheeky little molds, right? Let's just clear some of this decoupage paper. I haven't even got to the side yet. Martin, I'll put my palette there so you can have a gander at it as well.
Okay.
Now, we were looking for a sagey green, so I've got a little bit of Versailles. Now, I could just use olive if I wanted to, but I want something a wee bit brighter. This, and I've got a little bit of Greek blue here as well. Let's just see what this all mixes up like, because I'm going to be wanting varying shades. Now, I also want to use my nasty brush that looks awful, which is this one here. I'll stick it down there with a bit of white, like that. Let's see what we can mix here. Let's use this brush here. So let's just put all these together and see what we hit. Want a little bit brighter. I'm going to have to mix quite a large quantity, so I'm actually being a bit silly. I'll just put these together. See if I can get a nice sage. I want it a little bit darker, so I'm going to have to put a little bit more Greek blue into it. Yes, turning out sagey now. Yeah, this is the colour I'm looking for. Your stomach.
They can't hear it.
I can hear it. It's really noisy.
They don't need to know, do they?
Okay. Right, so I'm not going to need. What I'm going to try and do with this is I'm going to try and do like a sort of painty frame and the molds as well. So I think there's only real way I can show you, which is, can you see this angle here, Marty?
I'll come round to the other side.
I'll get Martin to come round. Sorry, with lots of wacky camera angles, but it's just this part here. I thought this would probably be the best sort of part area to show on because there's not a lot of molds going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm moving the decoupage paper so Martin can get a seat. There you go, Marty.
No.
So I'm going to start with the white I was using. So I'm going to put some of that onto here first, just to kind of give me a base with a little bit of water. So I'm kind of watering that down. And then I'm coming in with my sage, but I don't want too much of it, just a little bit like this to start with. And then if you imagine a sort of kind of a blend, I want the edges slightly darker. So let's just put more sage on here. And then let's just kind of blend this out. I'm trying to kind of get this sort of effect that is on the furniture before I kind of get any further into it. So if you feel it's not working, put a little bit of water onto it. So something like this, something quite delicate around this edge. If you feel it needs a little bit darkening up down here, then just darken it up and use your little brush like you would with big paintbrushes, and just kind of do something like that. Now, that's that taken care of, but the inside obviously is going to be white. Now you're going to need your little tiny paintbrush, because this is where the work really begins. You're going to have to paint all of these in. Now I'm going to do it almost watercolory. I'm adding quite a lot of water so that they're not all the same shade. You know, that some are a bit darker, some are a bit lighter. And I am trying to get the sides of this done as well, which this is what I mean. It's a buckle in day, because this is going to take a little bit of time. But if you want it to look good, then that's just the way of it, isn't it? So my paint's a little bit darker here. It's been less watered down on this one. I'll take it right down to the bottom. It doesn't matter if you touch the back of the furniture. I mean, I'm not going to be the end of the world. You can always touch it up with some white. I'll water the paint down on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these all in green with my little sort of graduated border, dark going to light using the white, all the way around. This colour we'll come back to, because it's going to be the paprika, which is the sort of Annie Sloan sort of orangey colour. I won't do that until we come back, but I will paint the top this blue. Okay, so I've finished all of the painting the moulds, their first sort of pass, that's been done. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking the Annie Sloan Paprika Red, and I am using a small artist brush to go along and outline this sort of frame. You can use masking tape if you want, but I have been going, like I did with the white, I have been kind of doing pieces and parts of the orange as well. So, you know, just, you don't need to be super duper on the inside anyway. You don't need to be super duper careful on the outside edge. Yeah, you do. Just to kind of give it that neat look on the outside. As I always say, when you're kind of painting something like this, if you add a little bit of water to your brush, you'll get it to flow much nicer, and you'll get a much tidier line. So that's all I was doing there. You haven't missed anything. Next thing I need to give, which I'll do off camera in a minute, but I need to give my leg my second coat of the Paprika Red. It's had one coat, but it needs a second coat, so I need to come back and I need to do that next. But let's pull this, because at the moment you're just setting the scene, you're trying to get this pale look, but you want to make it look more like it all works. So how am I going to make this happen? Down on my mix mat here, I have a little piece of dish sponge and some of the blue. I'm just going to kind of offload that. And I am just going to kind of wipe over so that the kind of almost the centers are out. If you do a little bit like that, don't worry about it. You can come back and fix that. And I am going to be starting to give these some depth so that they kind of pop and they work. You can already see this works more with what's going on with the decoupage paper. So you just kind of, you're not, the reason why I'm kind of skimming over them, it's not quite dry brushing, but I'm doing it this way so that I don't paint them all in again. I want to have the green underneath because the green's complementing here. So I'm just going to go round all of these like this. So you can already see this is starting kind of to pull together. What did I do next? I got the paprika. Now I'm just using the lid of my paprika because it's not in a squeezy bottle, so it's not on my mix mat, but it was the thick stuff that was on the lid, and that will do us no harm here because there's watered down paint here, but I want the thicker stuff, and I'm just using my paintbrush now. And all I'm going to do is either sort of touch the tops or go down, run it down the centre. Just wherever you think it's going to bring this out. Because now I'm incorporating the blue from the butterfly, the green from the decoupage paper. It's all starting to kind of work as a design. It was too pale as it was, so this was something that I'd already thought I was just going to go over them in the blue, but then I haven't done those ones yet. I have to stick to these ones. But sometimes it's quite nice just to touch the tops. And then other times, you know, you can go right down the vein of the leaf, bringing out some of that detail on the moulds. Right, so I'm not going to do any more of this, but you can already see if you take this section here and you take a bit of the decoupage paper, you can already see that this is working. Now, after I had did this, I need a frame because we've got a frame. We could potentially have a frame, but it's kind of a bit tricky with all of these here. So what I did was I cut out the strips from the decoupage paper. Now it's a little bit like Tiptoe Through the Tulips doing this because I did one, I've done the other door, and I just had to kind of just put it on like it. When I designed this, if you notice that none of these patterned lines that are on the actual paper are straight, see this, I've cut this out, but this is how it looks because it was supposed to look like edges of pieces of fabric and patchwork so that it was irregular. So when I apply this, it's going to give it that irregular look. But let's just put this part on so that you can see.
I'm just going to come around the other side.
Yeah. I mean, when you're around the other side, you could show them the other door.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
And then they'll appreciate. So you can see what I've done here. I've got this little part down here to fix. I noticed that I didn't like it. But, you know, I've put the pattern along and up this top edge. This is the greenery, it's done. The orange has been done. This is finished, and I'm going to be putting this other half of the butterfly on this door over here. But this is how this one is going to look. Hopefully, touch wood. So a little bit of Mod Podge on here so that we can apply this strip. And make sure you apply plenty because it is a strip and you need to make sure that you've got all your edges glued down. So I'm going to take it, I think, just check I put right to the top here. I think I was going to do something like, try and get it as close in as I can. And I'm going straight over the top of it as well with my Mod Podge. Just take that little part away. I can fix this in a minute. Don't want that bubble in it. So this is how I worked on the edges, just to frame it all out, to give it that same. When you've got an idea and a concept, it is, hang on, there's not enough glue on this part under here. It's really good to make sure that your idea is carried out throughout the piece. Now this is this thing that I was saying to you, decoupage paper has to have glue everywhere, and there was a bit that was bubbling and I knew that didn't have enough glue under it. Smooth that all out. And that's what I'm going to be doing. And I just cut out all of the edges that I could find out in my leftover paper. The thin ones, I've even got some of the gold pattern here. And these are just going to go. When it comes to the split edges, I wasn't too, you know, I just kind of like tried to bend it into this shape here and take it up to the next one here and then cut it out and try and make it. But there are parts in the door over there where it just suddenly stops because it's a patchwork quilt sort of effect. So this is going to go down here, and all these irregular sort of frame lines work with all this irregular stuff here. Now, I did cut out the other half of this butterfly to go. Now, I think it's going to go across where the, well, obviously it is, there's the hole for the handle, but I'm still considering maybe having a wee look at the handles. I wanted to put the original vintage ones back on, but I've been kind of like looking at it now and going, well, you know what, I might get handles for it. I've gone this far. Let me just try and cut this bit of the wing out so I can see if it fits nicer into this. Yeah. What else can I say about this? Really, that's it. That's all I'm doing. Making sure that all these parts are glued down. You do not want this coming back off the furniture for a customer. That would be horrendous. My worst nightmare, I think. So that's down to, and that was just fussy cut out of, it's just this one here cut. I think actually on this side it's closer over, but I've got this mould. So I think I might just add a thicker piece of decoupage down there so that it just doesn't look not like the other side. Let's just see what we can do now. So the this is us really kind of, the top has had 2 coats now. It's just had its second coat and I'm pretty pleased with the top. The last thing I have to do is with the orange is I have to start painting. Oh, my brush was a bit gloopy. I need to start painting this little band. And again, you can tape it off or you can use an artist brush. I can't take mine off right now because obviously it's wet. Making sure that you smooth out your brush strokes as you go, but you should be able to do it with an artist brush. But if you're looking for speed, wait till your top dries and then just tape it off and then you don't have to worry about any of this. Whoops. So that's what I'm going to do here, all the way around, sides as well. So the next time I come back, because I'll get this door finished, the next time I can fix that. Next time I come back, I will be working on a side. And obviously I'll just do one side because the other side will be the same. And then we will be getting closer to the finish line. And I must admit, I'm kind of glad. It's a big piece as well. I mean, I've been doing a lot of smalls over the winter in the boot room because of the sheer size. And I'm going to have to
stop. Yeah, this is probably the biggest piece we've had in here in a while.
And I think I'm used to, over in the stable, I'm just used to pieces this size, but I've got a bit soft, I think. I came in here and I went, oh, it's a bit big. It's taken me a bit longer, but you know.
You'll be match fit in no time.
It takes this time. I know I've got some other nice big, I've got a bigger sideboard in the Martin's shed at the moment, which I think will be my first piece when I move back over there. But yeah, you get this. This is going to need 2 coats. I'll finish this door. We'll move it and we'll get it into a different angle and then I'll work on the side, show you the side, then I'll complete the other side off camera and then we will pretty much be getting to ceiling. I had considered putting something on the top. If you wanted to go a little bit bananas, you could get another sheet and you could fussy cut some of the butterflies out and you could put that on the top. But I think what I wanted to do for this piece is I just wanted to show how beautiful the paper is on its own without things around it stuck over the top of it that you couldn't actually see how pretty it was. I wanted it just to be, and I think I've done that justice. I think it's an interesting concept that there's quite a lot of white on the front of this piece. However, I enjoy that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's enough going on everywhere else that the white it's not displeasing me. So I'll get on, get this done, get to the side, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, so in furniture land, you've just about to see the next piece, but what actually happened was on leaving the blues base coat, in fact, it actually had 2 coats to dry, what happened was I suffered bleed through on the top. Now, I think I must have about 100 videos, Matty. How many videos do you think I've got?
We're getting up for 200 now.
We get to 200 videos. In 200 videos, there is only one piece that I had bleed through, and that is the one where I did the Lachasse inlays on the glass and I painted the cupboard. That cupboard had bleed through. What is bleed through? Well, some people say it's the tannins in the wood, and if it's raw wood, yeah. But the majority of bleed through comes from some element in the substrate in the sealer, the original sealer, the varnish that they have put on. There is something in that that is seeping up through the paint. Now, it's not the end of the world, but it's ruined my finish. So how do you combat this? Now, can I just say about bleed through, and I've never really had a discussion about bleed through with you before because it's never been relevant to me before, because it's not something that I normally have. I think cleaning a piece really helps, but you can, when you clean a piece and you really wash it, if it's really brown water, you can tell that probably that's maybe going to be a bleeder. But it doesn't matter what you do with bleed through. You can keep painting it and painting it and painting it and painting it, but the same thing will just happen. The only way you can combat bleed through is to stop and get a shellac based primer and prime your furniture, because that puts a layer between the pieces varnish that is seeping through and your chalk paint. So what do I use? I don't buy it very often, and that's why this video has taken quite a long time. It's actually a week on, is because I don't buy it very often and the stuff I had gone off, so it shows you how often I use it. So I think the best primer I can recommend is Zinzerbin. It's a shellac based primer. Yeah, this is what it looks like. If you're familiar with primers, then you probably know what Zinzerbin is. I tend not to use these kind of products ever because we're an environmentally friendly company. And obviously there's a whole load of plastic involved in these kind of things that I try to shy away from as much as possible. But sometimes, especially when I'm already partway through a project, I'm going to have to just suck it up for this one time and just seal it. So how would I seal it? You need I like prefer to apply, even though I like texture in my piece, I'm going to apply my primer with a roller. Okay, it's very runny, shellac primer, and you can see how runny that is. You don't need a huge amount of it. I'm going to quickly get Martin to have a wee look at the top just so you can understand what bleed through is. Ignore these two marks here. These are not bleed through marks. This is something completely different. There's some here. It's like, it looks almost like dark greasy spots. Now if I had painted this in white, you would definitely 100% see this. And the thing that I don't understand about this piece, which has turned into a bit of an anomaly, is I painted the front white and I didn't get any bleed through, but the top did have that sticky faux vinyl on it. So I don't know whether it's pulled something through it by having that stick on it, because there was no sticky residue left. There was nothing that could come through, but I think maybe just having that on has seeped something up through the top of their sealer, the original sealer, and it is an old piece. So I think that's why it's happened. So bleed through, all you need to do is get your little roller with your product on it, and as I said, it is quite runny, and literally you're just going to roll over your piece. That's it. And then you're going to let it dry. This needs to be completely dry before you can paint it. I'm actually going to do the sides as well, because I had decided before I was coming back to camera to say I'm not going to overly pattern the sides, I'm just going to paint them blue. So I painted the sides blue as well, and I've also suffered bleed through on the sides. So, oops, my glasses are falling off. So I'm going to get on and I'm going to seal the whole of the top. I'm at a funny angle, but you do need to kind of try and, I mean, I don't mind texture, but you kind of need to go all at one way. I'm going to seal the top and I'm going to seal the sides. And then when we're dry, we'll come back and we'll do those blue and we'll start getting, because I've chosen not to, I looked at the front and I thought there's so much going on with the front. I think it would just be nice if the sides were restful and blue. And I've spoken about that before. Sometimes I'll put a pattern all the way around. Sometimes I won't, and this is a beautiful big piece of furniture, so I'm just going to kind of respect it and think, right, okay, it doesn't need any more, and that is something that you don't often hear me say. So I'm going to get on, do this, let it dry, and we'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do now that it's been primed, and then we're going to be starting thinking about sealer and handles and all sorts of things. Okay, so I know this is a bit boring. I keep bringing you back to show you something, yet another boring thing, but I've done one coat of the blue, it's had its base coat, and now I'm about to give it its second coat. And obviously with this coat, I'm going every which way so I can get lots of nice texture in the piece. So I'm going to go on and give this whole piece a second coat. And then when it's dry, I'm going to come along. I'd already touched this up once, but I'm now having to touch it up again because that tiny little lip there was showing white. So I had to come down and around. I could have taped it off, but I'll just come back along with it. And then I've got some bits to touch up on the sides. And then we will be thinking about handles. Okay, so for you, this is going quickly. For me, this has been 2 weeks. Anyway, just letting you know, just a little bit of housekeeping. I've done my roots because I looked at the footage from yesterday and went, oh, that's not good. And I didn't put you straighteners, so you're just going to have to cope with the hair as well. Now,
The Merida look.
what has happened? So, you saw me put the shellac, the Zinsser bin on the top. It's had 2 coats. It then had a further coat of Zinsser bin, and it's had 3 coats of paint. It isn't fixing the problem, and that's unusual. It's okay, but it's not perfect, and I don't like having that. So sometimes this happens with furniture. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes your furniture is just fighting against you. And I always think, well, sometimes I don't like to fight against it. I just like to go with the flow. And my dad used to say, in everybody's life, a little rain must fall. So this is just a little bit of rain. It's not perfect. So what can we do? Well, I always think a bit of clever camouflage, detract the eye from what it is, will help. Now, it's hardly noticeable, but I know it's there. So if you know it's there and you're trying to sell a piece, then you know it's never going to go away. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But before that, I was just going to talk you through. I had planned to change the handles, but the only ones I have over the road in the stable are these. I have 8 of these because I need 8. I thought of putting these on and then putting polka dots on the white, but it was all becoming a little bit too much for me at that point. Not because I minded the work, I just wasn't completely convinced on these. And when I really think about it, I think these are not the piece. These are not. So I'm just going to go back to the original handles. But what I will do is I'm going to run a little bit of white wax, and just that's all, just to bring out the detail. They're nice as they are. They're the original handles. I quite often keep the original handles and put them onto something else. And I really had earmarked these for something different. But these are just going to go onto the piece. So that's the housekeeping done. We've discussed the handles, my hair, and mess on the top of the piece. Okay, so we're talking about clever camouflage. There isn't, when I actually, now there's a shine on it because it's, the whole piece, by the way, has been sealed with French Sheet Sealer. Some of this is just shadow. I mean, it's been sealed, it's just not nice. So detract. So I've got this big boy stencil here. Now, what I'm going to do before I use it is, because I just don't want it to slip about, is sticky, tacky spray. I don't often use it, but it's good to just give a liberal spray of that just to stop it all moving around too much. Now, the piece I'm most unhappy with is here. So I'm going to be just doing it how I think it's going to go. It's not a kind of like, it's going to go here, here, and here. I'm just going to enjoy the process. And this will also detract the eye, but not only will it detract the eye, it'll do something. I really wanted just a plain top, but this is the least egregious fix I can think of. So I've got some Annie Sloan Stark wax, and you don't need too much on your brush. Set that down gently because the surface has been sealed. Hold your stencil down, although it has got tacky spray on it. And what you're going to do is you are going to rub this into your stencil. Now, you've seen me do this before. I don't do it very often. And let me be honest, the last time I did this was not to try and camouflage anything. It's just to, this is just like a kind of almost a trick of the eye. People are looking at something different. They're not looking at what I'm currently seeing and I don't like, because lots of people could look at the same piece and not find it offensive. But I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, and I don't want this to be the main focus. So now, people have asked me about this before, you know, about the wax. The wax just cures on top of the sealer. You just have to let it cure just like any other wax. So can you see that pattern? Yeah, and this was my worst area. So what I'm going to do is something clever now and just, well, I'm thinking it might be clever. I'm not really thinking about it too much, and I'm literally just going to go across the piece. Now, I said to Martin, oh, I have to be careful there with that, it's a bit thin. Should I maybe have done it in white, but I really don't want this to stand out from the front of the piece. So this is the least offensive way to deal with it, I think. So I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole piece. It's just as I'm showing you, I'm rubbing it in. I quite like it when you can get to the edges of the stencil. So, you know, if you get to the edges, it makes more of a sort of design. Pull that off again so you can see it. Can you see it on camera, Martin?
Easily, yeah.
I'm wondering, because I've got this, maybe something just, and this is where you just have to be kind of sort of clever with your, where you're going to put it, just to finish it off. Make sure that it's kind of, remember your positive and negative spaces if you're doing something like this. So they are, and probably the next position might be something like, I'll go lower here. But you can see what I'm about. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to get Martin, once I've done this, to pop my handles on. And you know what? Because this is for the release, we're going to take it over to the stable and stage it out over there with all my nice proper staging items instead of pinching things out my house. So that's what's going to happen. Yeah, Martin, anything to add to this process?
No.
I just thought I'd give you a chance to say something. No. There we go. And the next one I think I'm going to put here. We're still filming. It's actually quite therapeutic watching this getting done, I think. It will get a little bit gloopy underneath your stencil, so what I've just done there is a little bit wrong. I kind of trailed it around the piece. I wouldn't do that. I'd pick it up and stick it down and commit, as opposed to doing what I just did. Do you think we'll just call it quits there, Matt? Are you quite enjoying this? You're just going to keep going.
I was going to keep going, yeah.
You're just going to keep going, okay. Right, so I've got kind of half a piece here, so you want a little bit more on this one, I would imagine. So something like this. I'm not measuring this out or really thinking about it too hard, because all I'm really doing is looking at the top of the dresser and thinking about where the next one's going to be. Where is the negative space? Where's the positive space? Where have we put in the design? And this will take, the temperature's a bit better here, so I'm going to leave it in the house for a wee while and then it'll just go over the stable. But this will take, to be touch dry and to be moved, a couple of days. Fully curable in about a month. Sorry, I was concentrating there, I forgot to talk. Rip it off, put my lid down here because I'm running out of space. So here, maybe something like, maybe need something up here now. So I think we'll do this here. Try not to lean your jumper in it as you go, because that's never a good look. I think you like things like this, Martin.
I do.
I think you hover about when it's something like this. I think you like these sorts of things.
I remember the last time you did it and it was really effective.
I think it looks much better on a lighter colour, and we are working with quite a dark. Oh. You don't want bits of fluff or whatever. Oh, it's not fluff, I don't know what it is. I've kind of touched the wax, but I can wipe that away, because remember the piece has been sealed. I'll get a cloth to that in a minute. Maybe something sort of central now, I think. So I'm not using this is just a paintbrush. This isn't a wax brush. I'm not using anything fancy or particular. And this stencil, if you ask me about where the stencil came from, the answer is I have no idea. I went over to the stable to find something. I always think these sort of stencil details work good with one big sort of large aperture sort of stencil. tried it before with little thin ones and it's not the same. It kind of loses its sort of joy, I think. But I think when you look across the piece as a whole now, I am no longer seeing all the things I didn't like. I need to clean that part up there, and to clean that part there, all I'll do is put a little bit of clear wax on a cloth and just wipe it. But can you see it's detracted from the nasty that I didn't like? Are you catching that, man? Do you think it's showing that?
Yeah, look.
Oh yeah, it is. Right. While I look through the camera, I'm supposed to be like talking to you guys. I'm looking through the camera at my piece. So there isn't going to be anything more after this, to be honest with you. And I'm sure if you do furniture art for a living, this piece has been like, it's been really, truly my nemesis. It's just everything. And it's taken so long to do that. I'm so over it now. It's unbelievable.
It was the bleed through, wasn't it?
It was the bleed through. It was the how much time it took to do the molds in the front. And I like the molds, but I'm not in love with them. So that was a lot of time to do that. But let's face it, we're not here to look at the molds or the wax on top. We're here to enjoy the decoupage paper. There you go. That's a shameless plug. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Do you think I need to put a tiny little bit up in that corner? Or do you think it's enough as it is?
Maybe. Yeah, just to replicate that corner up there.
Just maybe just a tiny little just accent piece.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll do that. There we go now. So we'll get our old vintage handles on. I might now, oh, I'm sitting on my wax. Oh, that was sore. Oh, I know I'm feeling about. I might now, because I've just said I was going to rub white wax into these handles, but to be honest with you now, with the dark on the top, I'm not 100% sure about all this, but it's the best fix I could come up with that wasn't going to detract from the design. I think I might just put these on as they are now, because this is it would have looked too in your face if I had done it with white or I'd stenciled it, or so I think it's just the best fix I could do with the piece. I could carry it on to the sides, but I don't want to because I really just wanted all of this plain. So what can you do? Doesn't always.
I'm looking at it from a different angle than you are, and I think it looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I do.
You can't see
I mean,
that.
look, you know.
Yeah, well,
it looks cool.
Okay.
It does.
I'm sure by the time it comes to getting it over,
You're too close to it.
I know. Sometimes that does happen as well, and I've discussed that before. Sometimes you just need to go away, come back, and look at it with fresh eyes. And I think maybe I need to do that.
Walk away and then come.
This piece has been sitting in our boot room now for 2 weeks. It is too big to be in the boot room. So to be honest with you, I'm just glad that it's going somewhere that isn't here right now. So we'll get the handles on and we'll
get it over to the studio.
Get it over to the studio. So what did we do? We applied Made by Marley decoupage paper to the front apertures of the cupboards and the drawers, remembering that I was going for a sort of patchwork quilt effect. I did the simple greenery redesigned by Prima Mold round the edges. I then did the orange and the orange feet. Decided at that point in time I was just going to keep it quite simple, have a blue top and blue sides. I suffered from bleed through and I fixed it, or I thought I had fixed it with Zinder Bin. I then had to go again and do that all again, and many coats of paint later, I still felt I could see just a little bit of shading, not all over it, just in one corner. So I put the wax on top, and then off camera, which you didn't see, was because I wasn't really filled with the top, that I came along and I stuck some butterflies on it as well. I just fussy cut them out and put them on the top. It's interesting, that's all I'm going to say. Just remember, when you're using Made by, this is at no detriment to Made by Marley decoupage paper. In fact, if anything, it's the thing that makes it look good. The top, if you're applying Made by Marley decoupage paper, just remember, sand your surface, don't have big lumps and bumps. That's only going to give you bubbles and wrinkles. And make sure you apply your glue to your whole of your surfaces, every single bit, and don't have too much of lumpy parts of glue. Smooth it out at the end, apply it, wipe it with a soft cloth right to the edges. Don't keep rubbing it. Don't keep going back and going, oh, there's a wrinkle, I'm going to rub that. Just leave it after that. It'll all go back down flat. And then I would wait a while before painting up to the transitions. And that is how simple it is to apply. So I hope you've enjoyed this decoupage video. If you've liked it, give us a like, give us a share, give us a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to leave us a lovely comment. And Martin and I will see you again next week, won't we, Marty?
Well, see you next Sunday.
Take care. Bye-bye.